doing some shit to where, for once she asking us a question, to be honest, we don't ever really talk about how I feel to be in a group of just black men.
Safe space.
Because exactly, because we in the safe space. I'm in a safe ass space where honestly I can say something. My brother, I don't know you, but you know what's crazy?
I know.
I can say something. It was fucked up. He could be like, man, I know exactly what the young brother over here talking about. And it's crazy. We don't know nothing about each other, but we got the same. But put it like this: when we out in the world, I can say the same thing. Me and you can have the same understanding. It could be somebody right along with us and be like, we don't understand what the hell y'all talking about. What is black masculinity?
Right.
How is that a term?
The reason why I wanted to create this documentary is because I had come to the realization that there had only been 2 moments that I had seen my father cry. And in those 2 moments, I was very young, but I was also very uncomfortable with seeing my father show emotions. I wanted to unpack not only my own feelings, but also the feelings of black men in and around Toledo, who may have also gone through similar circumstances, where they only showed their emotions, rarely, in front of those that they loved, why that became the norm, and what happens next. What does masculinity mean to you?
Hey, already started out with a hard question, right? Well, way I was taught, masculinity means to be tough in every situation, never show emotion. It hurt, get up, dust it off, don't worry about it. That's my term of masculinity.
Okay. Has it changed at all?
A little bit,
How so?
due to understanding my feelings more. I tend to be more empathetic towards people. So.
Well, over the years, I guess it progressed because growing up, it meant I couldn't cry. I had to be in charge of everything. I had to be number one. And I guess over the years, I learned that it also comes with like sensitivity. Like you gotta be aware of who you are. Hold on, let me grab it.
To me, is what makes up a man. Like, the testosterone, the toughness, the roughness. Basically, if you're not masculine, especially in our community, you're not really considered a man. So I would say masculinity is being a man. If you're not masculine, you're feminine. In our community, there's really no gray area, so I just feel like basically masculinity is just being a man.
A man just being a man understanding his role as a man. And that means more than just being big or being able to produce a child. I'm talking about being able to be a very strong force in society. I'm talking about having your word. I'm talking about being respected. I'm talking about being able to communicate with other people and learn how to respect and give respect. That's what being a man means.
Wow. I mean, at face value, it's the qualities of being a man, or manhood. I mean, I guess you could talk about social masculinity and then like biological masculinity, which they say we all have masculine and feminine, biological. We're talking about social, I assume. Socially, the qualities of being a man, stepping up, responsibility, and responsibility to like your broader family unit, not just to yourself, but to yourself first, and then to that. Responsibility to your legacy, your reputation, your integrity, and then the type of things that go with it, you have to be interested in
I guess. I don't always want to say you have to be interested in sports, but yeah, there's a physicality to it. You can't be afraid to bump, so to speak. Yeah. Yeah.
Masculinity to me means strength. It means standing for what you believe in. It means, you know, at the end of the day, can you look at yourself in the mirror? You know, can you, when you tell your sons how they should supposed to be, you gonna live that way. You ain't gonna set them up for failure. You ain't gonna give them directions that you're not gonna perceive in yourself. So to me, masculinity means just making sure you really truly will live and die by the things that you portray to your kids.
Masculinity, to me, is, I think the best way to describe masculinity is to describe certain traits that I associate with masculinity. So manhood, or being a man, or masculinity, I feel like includes being a provider, being a protector, respect of womanhood, and I also feel like there's an aspect of toughness, being able to push through the ups and downs of life to uplift others that you care about. That comes with masculinity as well.
About taking care of your business, about being a man of your word. If you say something, they should be able to take that to the bank in cash. However, now that I've gotten older, I've learned more about what masculinity really is. Used to think it was just about laying it down on the sex tip and doing what you had to do in that way, right? Because that's what we've been taught, right? Boys will be boys, right? They taught our sisters how to be women, but they just tell us, hey, boys will be boys. But now that I've gotten older, I've learned that masculinity is a whole lot more than just the bedroom. It's about taking care of your business, owning up to responsibilities, being someone that can be held accountable. And as my auntie used to say to my mother, she said, you be careful how you raise them boys, because he either gonna be some woman's worst nightmare or some woman's best dream. And so I look at that.
I like that.
And I say,
too. I like that.
You know, am I to my wife, am I a nightmare or am I a dream?
Right.
And to be real, sometimes I can be both.
Right. Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that.
In the same hour.
Because you being who you are.
Yeah, some days I can be the monstrous guy, you be like, that's Will. And then some days I can do that Houdini, change into this other dude, you know. So.
Being responsible for myself, and in my case, my wife and kids. I think being accountable to myself and my wife and kids and my community, and making sure that I represent a human being, not so much necessarily a man, but that I'm always trying to be upstanding and have integrity and do things that I believe are right in a male body.
Me, masculinity is, fuck that. Go to the gym, work out, look good, work good, treat every brother with humility and respect across the board.
I feel that.
But be who you are as an individual.
Right.
We should not have to be running around here emulating ourselves like we white. Because that's not who the fuck we are. That's not who we are. We gotta be who the fuck we are. And for me, Sonny,
I'm not gonna mess with you.
right. and for me, this is what I send in to my children. This is what I send in to mine. Hey man, be who you are.
Yes.
Fuck what another person think of you or think about you or any of that. Be who you are.
Yeah.
So for me, masculinity is, hey man, being the best you.
Being the best you.
Being the best you.
Yeah.
And whatever comes along with that,
Yeah.
either you can accept who I am as an individual, or you can't.
Well, you can't.
You know, to be honest, it's not something I really think about. I just sort of present myself as I feel that I should be presented. I don't necessarily think about masculine and feminine energy, even though I know that it exists.
I guess masculinity is to me means it's however you define it within yourself. And the way that you want to present yourself. I consider myself to be a masculine person. I am fully male. I am a man. I've always felt that way. I've never had any doubts about that. I just present myself in the way that I want to present myself to the world.
But it's a matter of who, as a man, it's something that you feel. Whenever you get around a bunch of men, you feel that it's a sense to where you feel comfortable. It's a sense of comfortability. And as far as black masculinity, we don't have that much here in so far white America, to be honest with you, because based upon of our, as a black man, we were landing here on this country. It's hard to have that sense of pure black masculinity. So when this moment, how I can express it as it's freeing, because I feel like I'm with my brothers, and I know at the end of the day, even though I don't know none of these cats that's with me, I know they can understand the same things that we go through, because black masculinity. We don't mean to be toxic. We don't. And I love that. We don't mean to be toxic, but it may come across that. But at the end of the day, based upon what I've gathered, black masculinity, strong black men coming together. And they know what it is because we come together as one.
It's keeping your family safe. It's keeping your woman safe. It's keeping your kids safe. You know what I'm saying? Keeping your partners safe. Your brothers.
Your brothers, yeah.
That's all it is.
As we get older,
strength in numbers.
As we get older, we losing it though.
Thank you. Yeah, bingo.
It's getting lost.
That's where
the masculinity of all of us. From us, it's dying out. It's like we not.
I won't tell you where it's dying out from though.
It's dying out because we ain't able to give it to them. The younger cats,
we got it. It's dying out.
How we got it?
We had it growing up.
It's misunderstood.
But yes, this younger generation is losing it.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
they don't even know what it means.
Honestly, with all of this injustice that's going on around us, you know what I'm saying? Like, they stripping us of it. Mm-hmm. They're trying. We still have it, but they're trying to strip us of it. You know what I mean? That's what it is for real. You know what I'm saying? Like.
I was talking to somebody about the distance when you approach a man.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking about when you a man you don't know. The distance of when I say what's up to you. This is like
everybody
this right here
mean mugging.
is unacceptable.
Everybody tough. You know what I'm saying? There's no love anymore.
So now we have a basic foundation of what masculinity means to the men in this documentary. The next question asked is controversial for most. I asked them whether or not they believe in the concept of black male privilege. Do you believe in black male privilege?
No. What the fuck is Charlamagne talking about? Like, what do you mean? Because I get to say nigga?
Yeah, we should have some. We don't have any, but we should have some. We've been slaves for a long time. Even in this common day, we still are slaves held back by certain bounds and rules.
Okay.
No.
Why not?
Not because we have none. I've seen it all in every aspect, from being down at the courts for child support to being harassed by the police. There's no privilege in none of those places. In fatherhood, there's really no privilege. You can only do what the courts and the women allow you to do. So, I don't believe in it. I believe that you have to be masculine in all aspects. There's no privilege.
Okay.
Yes. I think male privilege is a thing. So I think as soon as I say that male privilege is a thing, that means that that women and those who identify as women don't share the same privileges that I do. And black male privilege, even if it just means that I only have that privilege in my community, it very much still is a thing.
I don't even know what that would be. So I guess, no. It's an interesting question.
Black male privilege?
Yeah.
I never even heard of black male privilege. I heard of black male, but never black male privilege. Now, that sounds like some type of dichotomy to me because black males don't have a lot of privileges. Even with the black woman, we gotta fight and battle, you know what I'm saying? Just for a sense of my belonging. Like, a lot of times black women feel like they the boss because they making more money or da-da-da-da-da. And you know, another thing, finance and masculinity seems to go hand in hand a lot of times. So when you in an oppressed, unfortunate, disenfranchised position, it's kind of hard to feel very masculine. That's why I feel like a lot of men, I'm not knocking the gay community or whatever, but I feel like a lot of black men that go that route may be feeling that way because they feel cornered and they don't feel like they have an opportunity to be men and be alive and survive. So I really can't answer that question. I never heard of black male privilege.
I think there are privileges that come with being a black male, especially being a black straight male. There are privileges that come with that. There's male privilege, right? There are privileges that we have as men that women don't enjoy, such as higher pay, right? Yes, as black people, if you compare that to our white counterparts, we make less, right? But when you compare what black men make to what black women make, yes, there's a privilege that just comes with being a male and fitting in with dominant culture and dominant society. There's privilege. Anytime you're part of a majority or dominant group culturally, there's privilege that comes along with that, right? So I believe that, you know, there's privilege that comes along with being a male, right? Because that's the dominant culture. There's privilege that comes along with a variety of other traits that are part of dominant culture. But yes, black male privilege is real, you know, and I think it should be acknowledged, you know. Because if black male privilege isn't acknowledged, if we can't even acknowledge it, then how do we help our sisters out? We can't. You can't fix a problem until it's first acknowledged.
Yes and no. I mean, it all depends on where you're at on the other side, you know, in terms of the question. Being a black male, I don't really think about the things that I am privileged to do, so I think this is a pretty good question to answer, because in a certain sense, as a male, we do get special privileges like, you know, working specific jobs over our female counterparts, you know, based on what we're able to do. But in terms of like black privilege, there's certain things and professions where we do have that privilege, such as, you know, being athletes. You know, we're often favored in becoming like professional football players, basketball players, or anything that's like athletically related. But I'd probably say that's one of the most privileged areas for an African American male. And sometimes we tend to get pushed into that role even though we're capable of doing other things, and we tend to not have that black male privilege, and it can tend to cause frustrations because you're pretty much being, I guess you could say, stereotyped to being able to do only one thing. So I mean, having the privilege because you're able to do it does not mean that that should be your future. But I do believe it somewhat does exist. It's just not really covered that often because it's kind of like a topic that's really eclipsed by a term called white privilege. So since, you know, you have a term called white privilege, people tend to disregard, you know, like things like women privileges or like male privileges or like black male privileges or like black women privileges. Like we tend to disregard that because of something that we're more focused on. But I do believe there is somewhat an existence of black male privilege.
No. Like, I mean, I'm sure somebody can figure out an arena where that you may have privilege. I say like a basketball court or something, but that's about it. Like, other than that, you're attacked anywhere else. But I mean, I can't think of anywhere where a black man is, you know, he has privilege over anything other than maybe his home. You know what I'm saying? But if it's not like sports or entertainment, I don't see any privilege.
Yes, it's very different from white male privilege, though.
How so?
I feel that there is an overarching male privilege, and that comes from the systems that we live under and the inner workings of patriarchy and all of those. Men are given sort of preferential treatment. And the best example that I can give of this to sort of make sense of what my thought process is on this, I recently watched the docuseries Surviving R. Kelly a couple of nights ago, and none of the content was necessarily, well, some of the content was a little surprising to me because I didn't know quite the depth of everything that happened in that situation, but my main takeaway from it was like black women are literally treated as like the bottom of the totem pole because this man can do all these things to all these women and ruin their lives and ruin their families, and comes out with a song, a hit song in the middle of a trial, and everybody forgets about it. And all these women are just like left hanging. So like that is an example of black male privilege because, you know, R. Kelly, this black male, has this overarching ability to just like surpass all of these accusations that have come at him that are true, and, you know, can still make it. I mean, like the most privileged people in society are white males because they run everything. They're in control of everything, and everybody else is like, you know, underneath that. I don't know like what the steps are for like, you know, each individual class of people, but I do believe in black male privilege because males are given preferential treatment and have more privilege than women in society as a whole.
Black male privilege, you know, I think it's a tricky word regarding black male privilege. I believe in it because as a male, I know that sexism exists, and I know as a male, I get preferred treatment often, not sometimes, but often. Now, on the power scale and less power scale within America, it might appear that the white male would be having the most privilege. However, still as a male and a black male, there is black male privilege, and often in the company of other men, I take that as an opportunity to shut down some conversation that I know that I can as a black male, because I can do that with little to zero backlash. So for me, I do believe that there is black male privilege, and to say that doesn't mean that it's a negative thing. It's just, for me, it means that we're in a position to make a difference. And we could either use it to lift our voices and speak on some issues that those who may not have as much privilege as we do, may not be able to. Or it means that I can use my black male privilege to purposely not say something, or to purposely be silent.
No, I don't believe in black male privilege. Reason why I don't is because I feel like in today's society, not only just the black man, I think minorities, period, we have a very, very hard, it's hard for us to make it in the professional field because of other races already being in those positions of power. And not necessarily meaning that everybody in that position of power is someone who degrades a minority, but I do believe that the majority of those people in those positions of power are a part of that percentage that keeps us out of that. So no.
Yes, I feel like it's something in a man's voice resembles, things in that nature, far as giving you the honor to upheld certain circumstances.
Okay.
Black male privilege? No, I think we have, we have a culture and a community, and there's mores and rules and hierarchies within that, but that's even within ourselves, It's black, who's the privilege of who? Who's in this month? Light skin, dark skin? Like, what are you talking about? Like, so, and then you want to talk about the larger society, black male privilege of what? Like, I'm not only going to get vulgar, but you can imagine. So, I mean, that's facetious stuff, That hasn't always, unless I'm going to go out here and be a sex worker, that hasn't always served me well. Some days I'd like to just get a job a little easier. Like, what are you talking about? Like, black male privilege? What is the... No. No. Okay. No. Okay. No. Is it fun to be a black male? Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's really scary. And more times it's really scary. And the toughness they apply to us is human beings adapt. So it's like you adapt your life being scary. Is that what you really want? If you feel like that's a privilege, then okay, that's for you. Okay. But I'm not bitching. It's cool.
All right. Has generational trauma helped you or hurt you in becoming the man you are today?
Definitely helped. I think because my mother, I won't say my family, but my mother was keenly aware to the ideal of the generational curse. And so even if, she didn't hands-on, guide me in that, the seed of what to look for in other people. And my family is, I guess would be what you would consider widely separated by generations. So, my dad was 56 when he had me, and there was a lot of brothers and sisters that came before me, even some nieces and nephews that came before me. So I have a lot of examples to follow on that side of the family. And then my other side of the family, my mom's side, is more a little tight-knit, and people don't have kids as frequently as you would think, I guess, however you want to put it. But definitely nothing compared to that side as far as that gap. But yeah, so I just have, I guess I would say I have an older, a lot more span of, from the Depression through, the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, and, of examples to follow up until the point where I was an adult. So, yeah, it definitely helped. I think it's something that everybody should be aware of is, the kind of things that your bloodline falls foibles to, or, it's like, they say diabetes running in your family or stuff like that. There's also social things that you can fall attribute to because of the culture of your family. It's natural.
Okay. The concept of black male privilege was met with many responses. For some, it was a resounding yes. For others, it was an instinctual no. And for a handful, it was a nuanced maybe, depending on the setting. The next section that was discussed with the men went into the impact of generational trauma and whether it helped or hurt them in becoming the man they are today.
I think that generational trauma has produced something in me, And I believe that anything that has a high value is going to have a difficulty factor attached to it. And I believe that the generational trauma has produced maybe the most fearless generation that we've ever had. Because myself and others may have been desensitized to some of the things that may have been hurtful for the generation before. Some of the trauma that we've gone through has allowed us to ask questions that the generation before may not have been strong enough to ask. Generational trauma has hurt me in a way where I used to look at myself as less. I used to look at myself as inferior, to others. I think that trauma, without it being properly processed, defined, and given an opportunity to release some of the things that I've had, inside, has helped me utilize that generational trauma to be able to recognize it in our people, and particularly our youth, to help them move past it. So generational trauma has hurt me in a way because it's made me available to see myself and others and to be more, compassionate. So that's my, that's how I look at generational trauma.
Probably would say it helped just because it helped me. I can see where it hurt some people, but it helped me just because I was able to see some things like my uncles did, my granddad did, great uncles that caused their demise. Like to see, an uncle that's we considered rich, end up begging, for money because of addiction or things like that, So I say it pretty much helped me. Some things they did, I continued the cycle, but I just ended up, breaking it. Like far as like going to prison, I knew, what I was doing could send me there. Watched a couple of my cousins go. I still did it, but just not to the magnitude that they did. So, for the most part, put it like this, I knew better.
Generational trauma, I think as soon as you use the word trauma, for me it would mean it hurt me. Because for me, masculinity, especially generationally, is toxic, right? I think over time it's gotten a lot more progressive, positive. But I think, even if you're talking about my dad's generation, my dad's 55, it was toxic. There was not a respect for the autonomy of women. There was not a respect for the accountability to self or accountability to the men around you. I think a lot of times we talk about the absenteeism of fathers now, but absenteeism of fathers is generational. So generally, I'm absent because my father was absent. So, I think anytime you talk about trauma, you're talking about negative. And in my life, personally, I haven't experienced a lot of generational trauma. My grandfather was an amazing man. My dad, became an amazing man. It took him a little longer, but he figured it out. And so I've had a pretty good crop of men in my life to teach me how to, through word and through action, how to be a good man, a better man, a progressing man.
Well, from my perspective, I'm a black male, but also I'm an African immigrant. I originally came from Eritrea, I was a refugee. I came from a situation where the government of Ethiopia was taken over by the military, so we had to escape. It was not safe. So I came as a child, but I don't think that really defines my experience. I think that experience of being a refugee had a big impact on my parents and influenced how they raised me. So that was more the defining event that influenced my life.
I think both. I mean, I think that when you look at the difficulties that generationally as black men we've had to overcome, I think you can't help but draw strength and inspiration from that. You can't help but draw strength and inspiration from those stories and those people and those men that were passed down before you. You're here for a reason, and it's because we stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of men that survived, people that survived all types of trauma, all types of difficulties, and I absolutely believe that we draw strength from that, and the power of our ancestors. We stand on their shoulders, and we're here for a reason. As far as the flip side of that, I believe that there are, there are things that happen as a result of trauma, breakdowns mentally and physically that create gaps culturally and in personality and in family. And sometimes those gaps, sometimes it takes generations. Like sometimes in church they call them generational curses and things like that. Or you see patterns in families that repeat themselves. And I believe a lot of those are a result of trauma. And we have to look at that and look at the things that were done to us that create hurt, that create pain, that have not uplifted us, that have created misery for not just us, but other people that we love, and deliberately, look at those things and deliberately work to prevent that, right? and stop that from happening in the future.
Generational trauma played a role for all of the men in the documentary, whether for the positive or negative. For the next section, we look at the role of fathers in their child's lives, as well as the roles that their fathers played in their own. While there are many statistics that show a parental involvement or lack thereof in the Black community, rather than rely on statistics, I wanted to hear from the men themselves.
It's a weird relationship. I mean, when I was young, I looked at my dad as Superman. And then I watched him, it's like he had kryptonite. And he just disintegrated right in front of my eyes due to crack. He became distant, reserved. It was tough, because then he tried to act like my best friend all the time. And he was never the disciplinarian, so I think that's how I got a little wild as well. And I didn't respect him because I seen him putting that pipe to his mouth. That's a hard thing to look at, man. You walk in on him and he's sitting over the kitchen stove with a crack pipe in his mouth. And he's sitting there going, I'm supposed to listen to about you saying clean the room or cut the grass? Man, bro, please. And that's tough. It was tough, but we're a lot better now. It took a long time. I mean, This man was my everything in my world, everything I wanted to be, and I watched him come down like that. It was tough to watch, but I'm so glad to see him on the way back up, and I'm glad to see he's been sold for a while. He's in his grandkid's life. I wouldn't allow him to be any other way. It was the first couple of years of my oldest boy's life. He wasn't allowed to be around. He's come a long way now. They say that's grandpa. That's big. That's big on him. It's big for him. And I like to see him win.
Relationship with my father isn't the best. He really wasn't in my life at all. I just, no lie, I'm 36 years old. I just now know when his birthday is. Just speaking back, we had contact through over the years, but it was never long. He always kind of called and checked up on me, but I think it was forced. My auntie was always trying to reconnect us as we got older to build a relationship, but it never was that. And then I took it upon myself as, being the son to actually reach out to him as I got older and, calling and stuff, but it was always a break in between. Even after I graduated college in 2012, I took it upon myself to go to Cleveland because my relationship with him was so bad, but my relationship was strong with my cousins and other family members. So I was trying to tie in between what we didn't have. So one time I went down there, kind of excited to try to build this relationship with him, and he just wasn't interested. He was just busy doing other things, watching football. I guess the Browns was playing, and he just kind of just brushed me off, like I wasn't even there. And I'm excited because I didn't finish college, I didn't graduate high school, I got all these things I accomplished. I'm in a fraternity, I didn't accomplish many things. I was like the man back in Toledo. I was throwing parties, I was just doing a lot of things throughout the community, and he just was like, okay, whatever, I'm busy, we'll talk about this later. And I just, after that, I kind of shell-shocked, and I just was like, I can't do this, you know what I'm saying? At the time, I believe, I was just looking forward to some, different. You get so many, thinking how a relationship's supposed to be with your father or your parents, and then when it wasn't there, it just kind of felt like, he didn't want me. I didn't know what was going on, so I kind of left it alone. And then we still talk to this day. But it's never I feel like a father-son relationship should be.
Wow. Man. With my dad, man, I love him dearly, man. He gave me a great example of what it is to be a hard-working man. He gave me a great example of what it is to love his family, to what it is to provide for his family, what it is to take care of a family, what it is to not think about self and put your family first. I tilt my hat off to my pops. You know what I mean? Now, what I will say is, I think our personal relationship together could be it could be better. And I am mature enough to understand that. And I can't say it's all on him. Reason why is because I could have probably came to him plenty of times. Even if he said no, I could have kept coming to him until he got the understanding of, that personal time outside of just sports or, him taking, because he took me look, I grew up in the gym, so it's not like I wasn't around him. It's not like he was one of those dads who just popped up to give me money or something. No, he was in my house every single day. But the thing is, it still was a distance. What I mean by that is let's go for ice cream, or let's go for walks and talk, and let's ride and talk. Those are little things that I can't, like I said, I can't necessarily blame him, but the only thing I can do is try to break that generational curse, quote unquote, and do it with my son, with my children, and make sure that I have more personable time with them as opposed of, oh, we're just gonna go to this event as a family, or, oh, we're just gonna do a family trip. But what about the in-betweens? What about the sitting down, let's watch Batman? You know what I'm saying? Or the real man talks that you have with a child or your kid growing up. I really didn't get those too much. You know, it was more in a form of criticism, but it's, I don't know, constructive, if that makes sense.
Well, I met my dad when I was 23 by accident. He actually stayed up the street from me my whole life. I never knew him. I guess he was caught up in his life, you know. So yeah, I don't really have a relationship, a consistent, healthy relationship with him. I met him early 20s, and since then I never really showed a lot of interest. And he, even after we met, he didn't really show a lot of interest in, you know, knowing me. And so I kind of let it go. I remember stories of, you know, he used to beat my mom, you know, just, so I never really respected him. Thank you for bringing me into this world, probably by accident, you know. But other than that, you know, it's just it's a blank relationship.
No, we didn't have a good relationship, which wasn't really his fault. My mom is a mess. You know, me growing up understanding women now, my mom is very, very, very independent, and she the type that she ain't kissing nobody ass. So my dad being an athlete, and my mom and my dad really wasn't even, it was just a hookup, like, you know what I'm saying? They wasn't no relationship per se, you know what I'm saying? But I learned later in life he tried to reach out, but we were in Louisiana, so he couldn't find. He played for the. He was an athlete. He played for the Braves. I don't even think he got in the game or anything. I know he got hurt, and then he ended up in the minor leagues. And he stayed in Atlanta in the minor leagues, just making babies. You know what I'm saying? So, I got a slew of little brothers and sisters that I don't know. I know an older brother, but only met him a few times. But dude, like when I met that guy, he came up here. I was 16. And we fought the first time I seen him, like, because I got suspended from school for fighting. Big gang fight. I got suspended. I came home. I walk in there. Of course, they already called my mom. So, unbeknownst to me, she done told my dad, like, hey, look, don't come at him crazy, like, you know, he wild, whatever. And I come in, I seen. I speak, you know, like, I don't know this cat, so I speak. And of course, my mom, like, what happened? I was like, got in a fight. So she was like, you know, I've been fighting so much, she just rolled her eyes, whatever. So he stand up now, mind you, he taller than me, big dude. He like, yeah, first words out of his mouth was like, yeah, all this shit about to end. So I'm like, I'm at this time, I think I'm super crip. Like, I can't be whooped. That's how I feel. You know, we just been fighting so long. So I'm like, man, who are you? They're like, I'm your dad. I just stole on him. When I stole on him, he fell, and I got on top of him. My mom, she pulled out her pistol on me, and I left. I ain't see dude for like a year, and he came. He got in touch with me. We went to a Scott game. Talked about everything, tried to give me a little game, but at that time I feel like, you know, I've been in the streets now. I'm indoctrinated in this. I'm selling dope. I'm, you know, messing with older chicks. I ain't trying to hear nothing you got to say. But that was the gist of our relationship for the most part. Like, that was the last time we just hung out. But I was cool with that because, you know, I had 7 uncles, a whole bunch of. You know, my granddad come from, like, I forget the number, but he got a whole bunch of sisters and brothers. Then they had 15 kids. You know, my uncles, you know, they got 7 kids, you know what I'm saying, or more. And so we got a huge family. I didn't, like, none of my cousins, we didn't need, like, our dads per se. We had uncles that was, like, you know, since I was the only child for so long, my uncles would pull up, you know, early morning, let's go. You know, if I ain't doing nothing but
hanging in the car with them while they run numbers and do whatever. But you just can't hang around your mama. Like ain't no hanging around your mama. You know what I'm saying? Our family was very homophobic. You know, you gotta understand old school logic from down south. That's the first thing they say. Ain't no sisters in this family. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, with me being the only child, of course, I'm susceptible to being a sister as far as how they feel, you know. So, you know, I ain't lack for no male figures. Plus we had, you know, my friends' dads, friends that had dads in their lives. You know, we always had them men in the neighborhood that'll pull over, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, get your ass home, whatever, you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't, I don't feel like I lost anything, you know. But like I said, my mom, her being the type of woman she is, very strong, very independent, she never reached out to dude. You know, never really gave a damn about dude. I ain't missed no beat, you know what I'm saying? So, like I said, he died while I was in prison. And the way my auntie told me, I called home and like, what's up, auntie? Like, my aunt hands very blunt, very straight to the point. Well, your daddy did. I'm like, all right. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, she know how I feel, you know what I'm saying? One of her ex-husbands, I used to call dad because she raised me partly, so I used to call him dad. So, you know, I ain't never lacked for no male figure, so I guess that's why I'm so hard on these cats with all these, you know, little clothes on and feminine ways. So I just grew up around a bunch of old school Southern, you know what I'm saying, black men, like real men, you feel me? So what I define as a man, you know? So I guess that's why I like I said, I'm tolerant, but you know, I got homeboys, they'll pick, you know, it's a prerogative of what they wear, but I'm gonna talk about you know. But we friends, if I don't know you, that's your business, man. You my homeboy, oh yeah, get on them jeans, you know what I'm saying, 14 slams, you know what I'm saying, so.
Okay. Him and my mom divorced when I was 2. Was separated when I was 2. Fully divorced when I was about 3. We didn't really start building a relationship until we started doing business together when I was 24. We communicate. Not that well, but we communicate.
Is there anything you wish was different?
I wish he would have made better decisions when me and my sister was younger.
Like what?
As far as the things he led to our family splitting up, I think he could have made better decisions, and as a father and as a man with responsibilities.
Now I'm telling you, like, yeah, these guys are talking about all these things. That's not reality. This is reality, and I think the young cats,
Hold on,
they
can
don't.
I ask you first? Did you grow up with a father?
So yeah, I grew up with a lot of men in my vicinity, okay, and they were doing the things that these guys were talking about in these records, okay, selling drugs, promiscuity, you know, all of those things. However, they still, it's a touchy subject because it's like, yeah, you see me do all of these things, but I don't want you to do those things. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So, I had perspective. I had those things, but I also said, okay, I took notes from those guys. So my dad was there, but he wasn't. Like he was. I could like see him, but he never sat me down and taught me anything. He taught me through his actions. Yeah. And I said, yeah, that's not something that I want to do. So the discussion is about masculinity or manhood, or I learned some of those things from rap music. You know what I mean? Like those were some of my teachers as well. Right. The guys in my neighborhood, my cousins, in and out of prison, those things, I had all of those things as those were my teachers. So when I took those things and I said, flipped it. So that's people are amazed when they're like, yo, how did you come from where you come from? And you, like, I just, you know, I had a different approach.
This is where we get to the crying part. My father called me the moving spirit. I never understood it. He likened me to his father, is what he was saying. Like, you know, what his father had skipped a generation and came to me. I guess he was a big fan of his father, which is cool. My father was born in 28 and had 2 sons before me. A lot of daughters too. A daughter after me. But, so he wasn't a new dad when he got me. And it never felt like it. I think, you know, most people in my generation probably can't relate to that. Or maybe, you know, even if their dad wasn't a new dad, it might have been like maybe 1 or 2 kids. But like 6 or 7 over 30 years is a different type of situation. And, you know, it was kind of like a lot of times we'd be honest, like, oh, it's your granddad. It's like, no, it's my son. And it was really like a lot of times it was like being with your grandfather, but the authority was your father's. And you would be quickly reminded of that. But at the same time, it was easy going because he wasn't pressed about nothing because he was in his retirement years. He wasn't trying to be pressed about nothing. It was very fun. A lot of wisdom was given. Both, you know, when somebody's that age and has lived a pretty decent life, a lot of it's like thrown off wisdom, like, you know, stuff that you laughed about it as a kid and then you get 10 years later and it's like, oh, this shit, that was the smartest shit. It's been a constant, you know, and I'll talk about it in spiritual. It's been a constant journey of appreciation, even since he's been gone. He passed in 2006. What I found is that dementia shuts down your organs, and so that's probably why his lungs stopped working after a while, because his lungs were getting weaker and weaker and weaker. But yeah. I think it was a journey towards understanding, and for a long time, even after he passed, it was hurtful because I wasn't done understanding, and I wasn't ready to be done understanding. And there was, you know, in understanding, in seeking understanding, you need somebody to answer your questions.
Right.
And the person the only person who could answer my questions was no longer there. So I think once I was ready to accept that that was all I could ever understand about him from him, and I was ready to sew up that hurt, then other blessings start coming, you know. I think this is one of my favorite things. I began to smell like him at some point in my life. Like the way, you know, you run to your father's clothes and you smell his thing, like my stuff would start smelling like, it wouldn't be, I was like, there's no way this smell is coming from anywhere but me. Right. And it was, I think that was a gift, especially smoke, the clothes, you know, the way it mixes, the pheromones are there. And then my aunts, you know, my brother and everybody, you know, they tell you look more like your dad and stuff you do and all that kind of stuff. And then you get older, my dad was a poet, so I read a lot of what he used to write, and I understand a lot more about his life and stuff like that. So the understanding comes, but once I was ready to accept whatever it was, then I could appreciate, and then more understanding came through the appreciation.
I don't remember having any important, you know, manhood, you know, conversations with him. He was an awesome guy. However, I think I had said before, depending upon what tools that he was given, determined how I was going to be raised. So I think for maybe the first 10 or 12 years of my life, I had 2 parents. Both of them worked, but I didn't get
some of those life lessons from him. And with my sons, I took the time to sit them down, regardless if they wanted life lessons or not. You get some life lessons, all right? Because I think that I made enough mistakes in my life that I could assist both of them. But yeah, my relationship with my dad was, you know, he was just there. I think that if anything, I probably realized that he worked, and I remember not knowing where he worked and what he did. And I think that this is funny. They were asking in school, I can't remember what grade I was in because I don't want to make myself look too lame. But they asked, where did he work? He worked at a place called like the Depot, all right? And the Depot was a place where they would bring a lot of government supplies, and then trucks would come and take them somewhere else. But I always thought that he said the North Pole. So when they were asking me at school, where does your dad work? I said the North Pole, all right, which didn't go over with all the other kids. Not only having the first name Washington, which I caught, you know, mad abuse for that, but to say that my dad worked at the North Pole. But I think that was it with my dad. I don't think we didn't do fishing. We didn't do, I don't remember, we didn't do, you know, sports games. You know, and I say that I think he did the best with what he had. And another thing that I consider about my dad, love him, he passed away at 55. And I'm 55 now, you know, and I'll be 56 in August for all of you out there that, you know, want to buy gifts, all right? It's the 1st of August, all right? So, you know, I know a lot of y'all get paid on, I can say, I guess it's on a Friday, but it's the 1st, all right? Just let y'all know, I know what it is. But I never considered how my dad grew up. I never met his dad to even, you know, talk about how he was brought up. I think that me meeting my dad in '63 as an infant, I may have met him after all of his generational trauma. And he produced a child, along with my mom that went through a lot of generational trauma. So it's almost like I'm the result of two people coming together, living in the 40s, 50s, you know, and 60s, and having a child that's born of that time. So I think that, and I consider that, I factor in those types of things so that I don't sound like a kid on Jerry Springer that don't like his dad or feel that they didn't do enough. You know, he did the best that he could, and I'm glad that everything that he showed me or didn't show me, I can use both of those now. You know, the things that I didn't learn, I know what to teach. Some of the things that I learned, some of the behaviors that I learned, I know, well, I'm not going to support that. So that's my relationship with my dad, and I like to always at least put it in context to let people know that he just didn't show up in 1963 as my dad. There was a prequel and a prequel to the prequel, and if you didn't go back to see the first two series, all right, then you can't tell me nothing about him, all right, because you really don't know.
What is your relationship like with your father?
It's kind of complicated, but I guess also not. He wasn't really around much when I was growing up. My mom was a single mother, and whenever he would come around, it was very sporadic, and you know, he was always like hours late coming to get me. I never understood why or, you know, what was going on. And as I got older, once I became a teenager, he started to try to reach out more. And by that time, especially in my later teen years, I just wasn't really feeling it. And I pushed him away a lot. And then about a month before I graduated college, I had my honors thesis exhibition, which was a 30-minute documentary film about my dad's mother, because she passed away when I was 6 years old. She only saw me about twice in her life, and I don't remember either time. She passed away in 2001. And so for my honors thesis, I decided to interview family members from my father's side, and I also interviewed him. And during that process, I talked to a family member that shared some news with me about my dad that sort of brought everything, sort of made my childhood make sense a little bit more, because he had been struggling with a drug addiction for pretty much my whole life. And I had no idea about that. That was kept from me. And I guess I understand why, but it just sort of hit me like a train finding that out, because I'm like, well, you know, he, you know, really was trying, and he really was giving all of his effort that he had. When I was younger, it seemed like, you know, he just didn't care, but he did. He just didn't know how to, you know, manifest that properly because of that addiction. And he lives basically around the corner from me. I've seen him in passing at the gas station that we live by, but I haven't been ready to have that conversation with him and let him know what I know, because historically, even when I was a teenager and I would try to bring up like, well, you know, you weren't there for this, and, you know, you only show up for these particular things when, and you, like, you know, why did this happen? Why did that happen? He would always deflect, and everything's my mom's fault, and you were too young to remember that. And I don't want to continue to deal with that, and I'm really afraid that that's what's going to happen. So I haven't made the effort to try to have a relationship with him. I mean, I want to, but there's a lot going on in my life right now, and that's just a thing that I haven't taken the time to do yet.
Part 1 of this documentary looked at the relationship between black men and Toledo and masculinity, black male privilege, generational trauma, and their relationship with their fathers. While this is only scratching the surface, Part 2 of this documentary will look at these men's attitudes towards their growth, towards how they treat men, and how they treat women, when they felt most vulnerable, and when their emotions have gotten in the way of their ego, and vice versa. How did you learn to navigate through this world as a black man?
I'm still learning.
I mean, I don't know. Shit. That's a broad question. Like, hold on, because I don't. I'm still trying.
For me, and this might be the shortest I've talked because it's real simple. Navigating this life for me just boils down to paying attention and remembering what my elders and my parents told me. And I feel like, and this is my personal thing, the more I follow God's instructions, the better my life aligned with everything. So, and then I don't worry about the outside energy that's coming in that's trying to attack me, because I just got to believe that there's a much powerful force that's going to protect me from that.
Absolutely.
And I just try to live every day doing the things that I can do, and I don't worry about things that I have no control over.